Average Woodsman here, back with another video. So today I wanted to go over a method or a primitive shelter technique for making it on the fly. So this technique, you don't have to have a whole lot of building supplies. You don't have to have a specific area that you're in or specific types of shelters. You can do this one on the fly as you're walking. You can even do this in an open area. And it's a primitive style shelter that will keep you relatively dry, relatively covered, and protected from adverse conditions. Now, it's not going to protect you through like a hurricane, but not many primitive shelters would. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into the video. All right, so there are a couple basic tools you'll need that you should be carrying in your kit anyway. I'm going to use my Silky Gone Boy. I got a good pair of leather gloves. You don't have to use leather gloves, and you technically don't have to use a folding saw. You could use something else, a different type of cutting tool, but that's why I always like to carry a good folding saw in my kit, because I can use it in an emergency. So I have a couple of these oaks. These are dead. Preferably you'd want live in an emergency situation, but I'm not going to kill a tree if I don't have to, and I'm doing this specifically for demonstrational purposes. So I'm going to cut these. I'm going to cut four actual limbs or trees, and similar diameter if I can. If not, it's not that big of a deal. And then I'll show you guys the next step. All right, next what we're going to do is just kind of put this into a point. I'm going to use my little hatchet here and just, make it as pointed as possible, because I'm going to be putting this into the ground over in this shaded area where I'm going to set up my camp. All right, so I got this into the ground. The area that I'm in has really soft dirt. If you're in an area with harder dirt or harder ground, you're gonna have to probably cut this and then hammer it down, which I'm gonna show you guys what I'm gonna do here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna decide how tall I want this to be. So if I'm sitting down or kneeling, about this tall, so I'm gonna do it a little bit higher, about right here, and I'm gonna cut about half to 2/3 of the way through, bending this over, okay? When I bend this over, I'll be able to hammer this down deeper into the ground, making this even more secure. So let me get the rest of them, and then I'll cut them, and I'll show you guys exactly how that's gonna look. All right, so now I know exactly where I want. All right, so now that I have all these set up the way I want to, and the distances, etc., I'm going to go ahead and see about right here. I'm going to cut into this. About 2/3 of the way through or so. Then I'm going to break it over. Alright, just like that. Now if I want to, I can hammer this down deeper into the ground, since I made those cuts on the bottom, making the bottom sharper. And I'm going to do this to each one of the other ones, and then I'm going to lay them over top of each other, making the initial structure. Alright, so this is the way it initially looks. It's not the most secure right now. If you have cordage, you can actually tie these, each individual one, down with your cordage. If you don't have any cordage, you can secure this even more by when you build your roof. So you'll build a more stable roof. I'm going to show you guys how to do that, because this shelter can be very, very sturdy if it's driven into the ground deep enough and you are able to tie off each and every one. Now, if you're not able to do that, I'm going to show you guys how to build this roof so it's nice and stable, even in inclement. All right, so now I'm going to start gathering palm fronds for my roofing material. So this will help keep me dry and divert rain so it doesn't come down on top of me while I'm inside the shelter. All right, so once you have your roofing material collected, I'm going to start putting it on. All right, last but certainly not least, I'm going to start putting some debris on top of it. In this case, it's just pine needles and oak needles. I'm going to layer on top of all of the palm fronds. I'm going to put a thick layer of pine needles to help with the insulation factor and also to keep any inclement weather out of my shelter. All right, so I went ahead and cut 3 poles so I could made a quick down and dirty tripod. I have multiple videos on how to make a tripod when you're out in the woods. I'm gonna make a small fire just so I can hang my bottle and boil some water. That's just about it. I'm just gonna hang out for a little while and camp out tonight. Head back home tomorrow morning. Yeah, just wanted to kind of show this shelter, show you guys this shelter. You can make a shelter on the fly anywhere. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be in between 2 trees. You don't have to build a massive debris hut or something like that. You can just cut 4 poles and put them in the ground. Cut about, 2/3 of the way through. Bend them over on top of one another. You don't even need cordage for this. And just make some ridge poles and shove a bunch of debris on top so it'll keep you out of the sun, out of the rain, and out of bad weather if you happen to come across it. Now remember, this is not going to, very few, if any, primitive shelters are ever going to keep you completely dry, especially in really, really bad weather. That's why it's important to carry the correct gear with you, or just don't go out if you know that there's going to be bad weather. If you don't know, it's important to carry the correct gear with you so you don't have an issue. You don't have to try and build a primitive shelter when you have bad weather coming in on you.